Good evening, everybody. I'm Mr. Martez Hill. I'm the superintendent of the North Carolina Cyber Academy. I want to thank you for attending tonight's virtual town hall meeting. So I'm joined by members of the North Carolina Cyber Academy's Board of Directors and the executive leadership team. So the NCCA, the North Carolina Cyber Academy, is striving to become the premier virtual school by maximizing flexibility and support for all students based on each student's needs. So, we've listened to many voices, students, parents, and teachers. And these voices have actually helped us to draft a student engagement policy. Tonight, we're going to share our ideas and continue to listen to your feedback as we prepare to implement these ideas next school year. So I want to recognize Ms. Leslie Bryant, the NCCA Public Affairs and Community Engagement Officer, to review the agenda. And then Dr. Deborah Posner, the Chief Academic Officer, to provide a review of our strategic plan update and review the engagement policy. And after, as you can see on the agenda, we're going to open everything up for a question and answer opportunity. So let me recognize Ms. Leslie Bryant.
Good evening, everyone. I hope that you are well, and we just want to thank you so much for joining us at our town hall. This is an excellent opportunity for you, our public, our biggest clients, our biggest stakeholders, to see what we've been doing to plan for next year. And as Mr. Hill said, that, everyone on this call right now, we come as a united front, as we've had several meetings to discuss, feedback from what our many stakeholders have provided, and how we can create a school system that is supportive and engaging for our students. So as our agenda today, we will have a strategic plan update, and also just a review of the engagement policy. And then in the end, we will also just provide additional ways that this is going to be communicated. And then we'll have a question and answer, which will be open for you all. You should have all hopefully received a Padlet link where you will be able to type in your questions, and we will see those questions live and be able to answer them accordingly. So our outcomes for this evening, what we hope will take place is that our NCCA families will be knowledgeable of the criteria and components within each tier of the engagement policy. And then also our second outcome is that our NCCA families will understand how the engagement policy aligns with our district's strategic plan. And so I invite you all to, to have an open mind, but to come prepared as far as, with questions, because we want to make sure that we are clearly communicating. I will say that when I went to college, I was a collegiate athlete. And when I got to college, they had us lift weights. And I had never touched a weight before in my life. This was something new. We also had a strength coach and a conditioning coach that I never had before, but they worked on skills and drills that again were new, but it was also personalized to my position and to have a positive outcome. And I will say that this newness and these skills that I learned helped me to be a better overall player, athlete. So as we enter tonight, I invite you to, although this is something new, it's, we've never done this before. We are doing this in light to, to allow more skills for our students to be successful and more proficient students. So again, although it's new, we're going to learn through this engagement plan, students will learn more skills and comprehension of content, which in turn will allow them to be more successful. So I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Posner, our Chief Academic Officer.
Thank you, Ms. Bryant, Mr. Hill, and our community for being here today. It's an honor to be the Chief Academic Officer for North Carolina Cyber Academy and to serve under Superintendent Hill's leadership and the leadership of our great board. And I just want to give a big shout out to our teachers who are on the front lines of making a difference every day for our students. Some of the best teachers I've ever met work for this school, and I'm really proud of that. So I just want to set the stage for the conversation with some quick facts. This is, as of May 1st, 155 employees, 2,900 students. We've grown 28% year over year, and we serve 96 out of 100 counties across the state. So this is a big scope. This is a big reach we have and a big commitment to accessibility and a high quality education. Now, accordingly, we are at a point where we are revisiting our strategic plan, refreshing and revising it to better serve the needs of this very big community over the next 3 to 5 years. These are the basic components of a strategic plan, starting with vision, mission, and core values. And I want to thank all of you for participating in this process. And I'm so excited to share our new vision, mission, and core values, which our board just formally approved last week. I'll also share with you the strategic goals that we're proposing for our new strategic plan, which are born out of the feedback we got from all of you as our stakeholders. And then we'll go into one of our key strategies to support our goals, which is that engagement policy, which Ms. Bryant introduced. So here they are, our core values, spelling out OWLS. And again, this is thanks to all of you who participated in the Facebook poll and our parent focus groups and forums, the superintendent chats and surveys that have gone out. OWLS, our mascot, is the acronym for these 4 core values: opportunities for all, willingness to grow, life readiness, and supportive environment. Our vision is to be a premier virtual school empowering students to lead, serve, and soar. And our mission, streamlined and refreshed, is preparing students through personalized virtual learning for success in tomorrow's world. And you'll hear some of these key terms echoed in the coming slides as key components of our strategic plan. So here are, and this slide keeps growing, these are all the ways we've been engaging with our community, with our internal and external stakeholders through workshops, surveys, focus groups, the advisory teams, this town hall, and on social media. We're also partnered with Cognia, who is our national accreditor and is helping to guide and facilitate our strategic planning process. So we're very grateful for that partnership. What I really want you to take away from this slide is the big percentage of families and students who have participated in this strategic planning process. So 34% of respondents were students, 54% were families. All of you are learning coaches at home for our students. So this blue and green combined here, a combined 88%. Is all of you. So thank you for that incredible engagement. And here are the key takeaways that we heard loud and clear through this engagement, right? So we have some of the themes or key phrases highlighted here. A request for more live lessons, for more interaction, quality of lessons, variety of electives. That was from the students, from families, very similarly, social interaction, more of a school community feel, more live lessons, more social skills development. And internally, from our teachers and staff, very similar consistent themes as well. More live instruction, being able to adapt the curriculum, personalize it, and overall improve performance through these strategies. And so we've aggregated the big themes that we identified in those comments, in the feedback you provided, into these 3 new strategic goals to provide a more engaging curriculum and instruction, personalized learning, and supportive environment for all, our students, our staff, our teachers, and you, our families. But where I want to dive in now is engaging curriculum and instruction. And I want to give another shout out now, this one to Georgia Cyber, our neighbors down south. They have a pretty large virtual academy, 10,000 students compared to our approximate 3,000. And they've been doing live learning as their primary instructional delivery model for a few years now, with dramatic, transformative results. And they've been great partners to us in sharing how they did this, what their challenges were, what their learnings were, and strategies that have worked. And so we've largely modeled what I'm about to share with you now, this engagement policy, after Georgia Cyber's model as well. So this is broken into two categories. A set of tiers of engagement for K-2 and 3 tiers for grades 3 to 12. So I'll start with K-2, simpler, only 2 choices. And to be clear, when we talk about engagement, we're talking about participating in live learning sessions, right? So some other terminology you hear around this might be synchronous versus asynchronous. Asynchronous has been more the model you're familiar with from our past, from our history. It means students working independently on their own time, their own schedule, and without a live teacher guiding them in a structured setting. Synchronous or live learning means being just like this. It's still virtual, but we're live, we're face-to-face, we're interacting in real time. And this is what we want to provide more of. This is what you've asked for, and this is why we've developed this new policy modeled after best practices we're seeing elsewhere to make a big difference in the way we can best serve our students, and also to still provide flexibility for those students who demonstrate they've earned it and can still succeed with flexibility in an asynchronous or less live learning environment. So starting with grades K-2, 2 tiers here. Either moderate flexibility, where students would need to attend 50% or more of the daily live sessions per week, or traditional class structure, which means coming to class every day in our virtual live learning sessions. And the placement of these tiers will be based on proficiency of the standardized assessments, and also making sure that students are on track. Even if they had top scores, high proficiency on tests, they still need to demonstrate currently that they're able to handle the moderate flexibility to stay in that tier and stay on track for course completion. All right, but the bulk of our customers will be in this grades 3 to 12 category here. And here we have 3 tiers. Full flexibility. Students who earn full flexibility, their subject or course average is 80 or above. And by the way, this model applies course by course. So if a student is highly proficient at all subjects except for math, let's say, then they could potentially be in a full flex model for all courses except math. So we're really tailoring our services and this placement into tiers to the student's needs. So full flex starts at 80 or above for that average, as well as staying on track, demonstrating deadlines are met, where we have data available, looking at end of grade or end of course tests from the prior year, or any other standardized tests as appropriate and applicable. And full flex means that attending live learning is optional. Watching the recorded lessons is not optional. That would be required. But students have the flexibility to do that on their time, as long as they're keeping on pace with assignment deadlines. Moderate flexibility. This is where a student's subject or course average is 77 to 79. Still proficient on standardized tests where applicable. And here, much like the moderate flexibility tier you saw for our youngest stakeholders, these students would have to attend 50% or more of live learning sessions per week. Traditional class structure, this is for those students who need the most structure, who need the most interaction and guidance and personalized, individualized attention. Course or subject average 69 or below, or not able to meet deadlines on their own, or not proficient in the various standardized tests as applicable. So here students would need to attend all sessions and document when and where they cannot. And of course, in all cases, watch recorded class sessions if a live learning session is missed. That's a high-level overview, and again, we look forward to your questions at the end. Let me hit on some more highlights that might answer some questions already popping up. So existing students at NCCA will be evaluated on their prior year's grades and test scores where applicable to get placed into an engagement tier. New students to our school, however, and I'll tell you, Georgia Cyber is very clear about this. New students must participate in live learning for at least their first quarter before being placed into a more flexible tier. Students have to demonstrate and earn that flexibility. We know that the skills and the culture and what it takes to succeed in brick and mortar is very different from virtual. So at least one quarter to get acclimated, to learn our tools, to meet their teachers, establish relationships with their peers, and then they can earn placement after that first quarter for those students who are new to us. We will reevaluate and place students in appropriate tiers on a quarterly basis. So there is opportunity to move up and down through those tiers based on proficiency and course averages. But at any time, let's say a student is in the full flex tier, but they're feeling lost or they're feeling lonely, they are welcome to pop into those live sessions anytime. So students are always welcome to attend those live learning sessions regardless of what tier they're placed in. But students can't choose to go the other way. If they've been placed into the traditional class structure and identified as needing those supports, then they would have to adhere to that tier until they earn their way out of there. If there's an IEP or 504 plan in place, whatever's specified in there around the attendance or engagement would be the governing document, of course. Some other key takeaways I want you to know, and hopefully this gets ahead of some questions. Very important, cameras must be on. Cameras must be on unless there are any case-by-case exceptions, but this is so important to ensure the quality of this engagement. We're also working hard to minimize class sizes. So we want you to know how diligently we're working on the back end to ensure and set up the success of this new model. We can and will provide digital backgrounds like the ones you see us using right now. So if a student wants to protect their privacy or minimize distractions that might be in the background, they're welcome to use their NCCA digital background. They should have a designated location to work. Attendance is being defined and redefined based on this new engagement policy. It's no longer just based on work completed. It's now based on attending a live session and or watching recorded sessions. And they must attend or watch the entire session to be present. Ultimately, students who don't abide by this new policy could potentially be administratively withdrawn. We would do everything we can and a very systematic layering of communications to all of you as parents, just as Georgia Cyber does before we get to that point. So just to summarize how this will work, we are balancing flexibility with supports. And there's no one-size-fits-all model here. Your student might be very highly self-directed, a strong academic achiever. Maybe they're involved in very demanding extracurricular activities as an athlete or an actor or performer. And they need the flexibility to complete schoolwork on their own schedule. Well, that's the profile of the student that would fit that full flexibility tier. But maybe your child is like mine and thrives on routine and structure, needs more academic supports and individualized attention, access to all the great services we offer, including mental health and social emotional learning opportunities, a chance to interact with their peers. Maybe they enjoy that live online interaction. Perfect. We've got the model to fit your needs, from full flexibility to traditional class structure and moderate in the middle. And this slide summarizes the benefits of each of these tiers of engagement. And as you see, traditional class structure offers the most benefits, because students then have access to the most supports we offer. In all cases, students have the flexibility to attend class from anywhere. That doesn't change. I will now turn it back to Ms. Bryant to talk about how we will keep the conversation going and be able to continue to be engaged with all of you as we improve and refine this policy going forward. Ms. Bryant.
Thank you, and excellent job, Dr. Posner. So I know that this was a lot of information to gather, and perhaps you are processing this as you listen. Do want you to know that, as we mentioned before, that Padlet, I seen that it was dropped in the link on Facebook, that you can ask those questions or share your thoughts. This will not end, the Padlet will not end tonight. As we are thriving to have just a continuous cycle of improvement, we want to hear that feedback. So this Padlet will be open for you to continue to ask those questions, and that we will address as a leadership and help us clarify what we communicate out even better. So please use that tonight, but after tonight, if you think of something, continue to use that. We also will have a guide on our website that will provide additional or this information on our website. And this summer, we will have orientation sessions for our learning coaches, which will include the student engagement policy, the proposed student engagement policy. And we'll also have a Canvas course where you can refer back to it. And we'll continue to just have focus groups that will just allow that feedback from stakeholders to share their thoughts. So again, we shared this tonight. We understand that it's a lot of information, but we want you to know that you have a voice, and that we want to hear your questions. And that not only helps us clarify things, but it also helps you in return for that information. So we are going to turn this over. And I did want to say that the Padlet, it is anonymous from what I believe, and that so names are not associated, so you don't have to worry about that. And so we're going to now we're going to do our question and answer. I'm going to have Mr. Hill facilitate that portion of our time together.
Okay, Ms. Bryant, Dr. Posner, thank you. Before we begin recognizing questions, I want to recognize board members who are in attendance. Ms. Angela Howard, Dr. Audrey Martin McCoy, Ms. Deborah Williams, Ms. Dee Ray, and Ms. Jill Hammergren. Thank you. Thank you for attending. And also want to recognize our principals who are in attendance. Mr. Micah Copeland, who is the principal of our elementary school, Ms. Clarissa Fleming, who is the principal of the middle school, and Dr. Chris Vecchione, who is the principal of our high school. So I am looking at our chat to see the different questions. Question number 1, live lessons in foreign language classes. Will there be live lessons for the students when it comes to foreign languages? So they can learn to properly speak and pronounce what they are learning. So we definitely will continue to partner with Edgenuity Imagine Learning around the provision of certain electives, but we're going to do everything possible to ensure that we hire NCCA teachers who will provide live learning lessons in what have traditionally been known as electives, such as foreign language. Question 2. If they do not go to live lesson class, will the recorded class count as the live lesson? This is for the moderate. The reason I did this school is because of the full flexibility. Is there a reason why full flexibility is not for first graders? So let me ask Mr. Micah Copeland to address the second part of that question, with regards to our thinking, regarding flexibility for children in kindergarten, first and second grade. Mr. Copeland.
Good evening, everyone. The reason why we look at the flexibility for our kindergarten, first and second graders differently than our older students is really to make sure our students have that strong foundation as readers and literacy. And so the strong foundation in all of their schoolwork and beginning to develop those school habits. So, and that routine that Dr. Posner mentioned is very important, and we want to make sure that that structure is there for our youngest students and that they learn from that, and then as they grow older, have the opportunity for additional flexibility.
So the first part of the question, if they do not go to live lesson class, will the recorded class count as the live lesson? So I'm referring back to slide 13 for grades K2. Required viewing recorded class session if live lesson is missed. So on the far right corner, on the far right part of the slide, with regards to criteria under moderate flexibility. So the answer is yes, if you miss a live lesson, you can view the recording, and then that would count towards attendance. Question 3, is this policy set in stone, as I disagree with K2 not giving the option for full flexibility? So, the purpose of tonight's town hall is to present to our parents the path that we plan to recommend to our board of directors. The board of directors will discuss the policy at the May meeting, and we're going to recommend that our board approve the policy as presented. However, we are open to continue to hear feedback, and we think that the policy as written actually does provide for flexibility, especially as it relates to full and moderate flexibility. We believe it's really, really important to ensure that we are helping our teachers to drive instruction. We think that this is a great opportunity to ensure that our children receive the proper instruction and the engagement. And frankly, based on the feedback that we've received from students, from parents and teachers. So, while this is our proposed policy, we want to continue to always focus on improvement and continue to listen to the voices of parents as we implement this policy. Question 4, flex standardized test. One of my kids does not do well on standardized tests, but does well in classes and has good grades. How would this student be placed regarding flex? What grade level is this? I'll assume that the student is in grades 3 through 12. Now, one of the great things about this system is that it seeks to look at multiple points of performance. So again, I'm just looking at the question.
Happy to jump in here too, Mr. Hill. So it's a great question, and absolutely, some students are not as good at test taking as course completion, but this does look at multiple criteria, and proficiency on standardized tests where it applies is important. And if a student is not proficient in EOG, end of grade or end of course tests, that still does signal the need for extra supports. Maybe it is around test taking, but that student might end up placing in moderate to traditional class structure to get the right supports and services, including to help them succeed better with testing.
Question number 5, how will we know what tier our student will be in for each class? Where will this information be posted for the student and the learning coach? Dr. Posner, let me ask you to address that as well.
Absolutely. So this will be an evaluation done on a quarterly basis and communicated out to students in multiple ways, including through Canvas, I imagine our other tools as well, email. I might have to refer to principals or Ms. Yerke on some of the various channels, but this will be a very transparent process, and we'll be in close partnership with our learning coaches throughout.
So we're going to look at data from this current year to make the determination regarding which tier the student would be in beginning next school year. You know, one thing that we plan to focus on is ensuring that registration is complete as best we can before the end of this school year. So the registration and the process of looking at data and determining the tier is something that we are going to be working on for the next month or so. You know, one of the things that we're also focusing on candidly is, you know, making sure that we have the technology as well as the staff to oversee and to implement this policy. So we're going through the process of looking at a technology tool that the Georgia Cyber Academy has implemented, and we're also looking at hiring additional support staff to ensure that our principals and our teachers have the support to implement this policy, and that we can communicate this information before the beginning of school, as well as update the information on a quarterly basis, as Dr. Posner has stated. Question number 6. What happens if they are traditional but live learning lessons overlap? So we're also, as I mentioned earlier, looking at registration, trying to finalize that before the end of the school year. So our principals are going to be working with counselors to schedule classes in such a way that there won't be the overlapping of sessions that you mentioned, or that the question seems to suggest.
Yes, I just wanted to chime in and say that we are creating, we as in K-12, master schedules that will ensure that our students have a stated schedule for the day. And that means that they will know exactly where, which live lessons they need to attend. So there will not be any overlapping, because they will have their personalized schedule for the day as to what courses they'll be taking and the days of the week that they're taking them.
Thank you, Ms. Fleming. Question 7, what happens when a teacher does not post recordings of the live lesson? Several teachers only post quizzes or slides for students to go through. Are those going to count for attendance? So we are transitioning towards the requirement that, as is stated, all live lessons will be recorded. So, in order for us to, on the one hand, say, if you have certain flexibility, you will be able to watch a live lesson, then that means we will require the recording of live lessons so that each student who takes advantage of that opportunity will actually be able to review a recorded live lesson. Question 8, for a rising 10th grader, who will make the placement decision? Existing 9th grade teachers or Q1 10th grade teachers? Will EOC exams be considered? Will learning coaches and parents have input? So EOC exams will be considered. The grades, of course, will be considered as well.
And I'm happy to add to that, Mr. Hill. So this is absolutely a data-driven decision. It's not just a teacher decision, of 9th or 10th for that matter. This would be a database formula applied and pulling in these various criteria where we have that data available. Now that doesn't exclude teachers from the process, because through the course of a quarter, if a teacher identifies a student who placed into full flexibility, but seems to be slipping through the cracks, seems to need more supports, is falling behind on assignment deadlines, then that current teacher can certainly advise that a student move into a moderate flexibility or traditional class structure tier as appropriate during the quarter. And so a student wouldn't have to wait necessarily till the end of a quarter to adjust accordingly.
Will there be paperwork sent out for a parent to choose the tier? I think that also piggybacks off what Dr. Posner said. This will be a data-based decision in collaboration with the teacher, who of course is assigning grades and also knows the needs and is interacting with the student as well as interacting with the parent.
Now, I will add, parents do have input and choice if they would like for their student to have more structure, more live online learning. They can certainly recommend their student to start attending class more if they see that need. And it might not be for academic reasons. It might be for social reasons or other developmental concerns that they want their student to be in a more traditional tier. So in that respect, parents can certainly have that influence.
So will there be a different live lesson platform used or additional support for students with weaker internet and who have trouble with their camera being on during a live lesson and getting clear audio simultaneously while the teacher teaches? So we definitely want to know from every family if they have challenges with access to broadband internet. So we have equipment to ensure that every child and every family is able to access the internet at broadband speeds. So we are, as I mentioned earlier, looking at a different platform to give our students, our teachers, and our parents the technology and the capacity to be able to actually effectively engage in live learning lessons.
And that technology provision is not only the broadband, but the hardware as well, laptops where needed that have the capacity to handle this kind of connectivity.
Question 11, will the students still be able to work on lessons at their own pace? as long as they are completed by Sunday evening, or will they be penalized if they do not complete the lessons assigned each day? My student is in the 3 to 12 group. Sometimes we take weekdays off and work on the weekends. No, the student will not be penalized for working across 7 days, prior to the beginning of the next week, because we're allowing students to complete 5 days of work over a 7-day period. Question 12. So they will not be penalized if they missed a live class and watched the recording. It will be seen as the same. That's my interpretation, but let me just defer to Dr. Posner and have her answer as well.
Thank you, Mr. Hill. So it depends on the tier. So in full flexibility, students can watch the live learning sessions as their option, or view recorded class sessions, and those would equally be considered for attendance. However, if a student is placed in one of the other tiers, and the reason is because they've been identified, and by the way, the vast majority of our students would place in either moderate flexibility or traditional class structure based on current data we have. So if they've been identified as needing more live supports, then yes, they would be required, as that tier states, either 50% or more of the time or all of the time, to participate in live sessions. And those would not be viewed as equal, the live sessions and recorded sessions. Recorded sessions are great for making up a missed class, but of course would lack the live engagement and interaction and personalization of actually being in the live session.
So Dr. Posner answered this question: why can't being at the live session count the same as watching the recorded session? And again, it depends on the tier. It depends on, frankly, how well the student has shown and demonstrated, their learning progression. And it's, one thing I would add is when we had talked about this policy internally, many of our teachers actually asked that students participate in live learning so that the teachers could build a strong relationship with the student, that the teacher could support the student, where the students is needed for social, emotional, and academic learning. So, one of the reasons we're going down this path, and a reason why we've started to use Canvas as the learning management system, is to ensure that we can assist our teachers as they drive instruction. And we also have continued to listen to the voices of parents and the voices of students. And we want to try to maximize flexibility as well as maximize support. We've experimented in many ways over the last several years with virtual learning, and frankly, there are just some good practices that make sense both in virtual and in face-to-face learning. And so, this is the path that we want to go down, and again, welcome your ongoing feedback and support. So live lessons are time consuming. Some students have a heavy workload, spending beyond a normal amount of time online working on the curriculum. Mandatory live lessons would greatly increase the amount of time students are spending on schoolwork. Will this be factored in when the daily schedule is being determined? I will open the floor for any of our participants to answer this question. I want to also again recognize our board members, especially Ms. D-Ray and Ms. Howard, who have kids who are participating in our school. And again, I want to ask if they would like to chime in on that question, or if our principals would like to chime in on that question.
If I could just say something before Board Member D-Ray and Board Member Ms. Howard, Angela Howard. One of the things that I think is important for our families to note is that when we're moving from the asynchronous to a synchronous type model, much of that asynchronous coursework that students had to complete will now be merged in with the live learning and happening at that time. So it's not adding additional live learning sessions and still requesting your student to complete the amount of work that they initially completed in Edgenuity. It will actually be live learning sessions with guided activities and practices. And then there may be an after a live lesson activity that they can complete. So we want to make sure that we're shifting the thinking to live learning with the teacher, with guided support, and then maybe there would be some small groups. So what we're looking at, and specifically I can say in the middle school grade band, is that if you have a live learning class for that particular content area, then that is your instruction for that content that day. So that is just a key thing to remember when we're talking about moving from the asynchronous model to the synchronous model. Thank you.
I'm so glad you pointed that out, Ms. Fleming, that this also includes a shift in terms of the kind of coursework and the timing and the way that students stay on track in their coursework. It's not going to be extra time per se. And in fact, watching a live lesson would also take the same amount of time as watching a pre-recorded lesson. But the key is students wouldn't just be watching a live lesson, they would be participating. So same amount of time, but live means more engaging. And so we're really pleased to be able to move to this and model after the success stories we've seen elsewhere. We know that more live learning is correlated with increased success. We've seen dramatic results elsewhere where this model has been put in place and student achievement dramatically increased over time.
Would anyone else like to add to the discussion? So if the parent prefers their child to attend every live lesson, do they have to request the student be changed from full, moderate, or can the student just attend every day? Dr. Posner.
Yes, sir. I love this question, and we welcome students to join those live learning sessions at any time. No formal request needs to be made. Our virtual door is always open.
On the master schedule, will all classes have daily live lessons that the student has registered for during the year? Ms. Fleming or Mr. Copeland or Dr. Vecchione?
Good evening, everyone. Just an opportunity to respond to that. So it's a great question about the master schedule. And I know that Ms. Fleming and Mr. Copeland and myself are all working really hard to develop master schedules that will best meet the needs of our students. But for this specific question, it's asking about daily live lessons for every class. And I can only speak for the high school at this point, but for high school, our EOC courses, just like we have this year, will be meeting Monday through Thursday. And then our non-EOC and elective classes will be on either a Monday, Wednesday, or a Tuesday, Thursday schedule. But again, that's speaking solely for the high school.
And I'd like to add, good evening again, that yes, the goal is that you will have a schedule that will say this is your daily schedule, much like we have a schedule right now that says this is when our live lesson classes are at the elementary level. This is when our supplemental instruction, the discovery time, is taking place. So that will be published for students and they will know when they're expected to be in their courses.
What happens if the grades vary from week to week? How is attendance going to be collected efficiently if this is the case? How does this affect the tiers? So as Dr. Posner mentioned, an assessment of the placement will be done on a quarterly basis. So it would give us time to account for the grades through that time period, which would impact attendance. Is the 6 hours a day, 30 hours a week still necessary for attendance? That's a really good question. So, you know, one of the requirements that we must still adhere to is the requirement that students receive, I think 1,250 hours of instruction per year. That's a State Department of Public Instruction mandate. So the requirement is that we provide that amount of instruction over 180 days over 9 months. So, you know, we will schedule classes and ensure that our calendar provides the minimum number of instructional hours required by state law and by Department of Public Instruction policy. In traditional school, many times teachers will enter students' work into various competitions. Will teachers from NCCA be doing that? That's an interesting question. Principals, have any of you done this practice as is asked in this question?
There are times when DPI has certain programs or art contest or writing contest or forestry, I believe it is, contest. And I do know last school year we participated, and I believe 2 of our students had honorable mentions. So we do participate when the content area has that opportunity.
And if I could just brag about my principals a bit, you know, the kinds of experiences they're providing students are incredible through virtual field trips and even some on-site opportunities. So the more students are engaged, the more they're in these live learning sessions, the more they'll have a chance to participate in a wealth of activities as well.
So this is a good question. My daughter, who is going to the 8th grade, wants to know why she has to turn her camera on. So I'll just let you know that, you know, we've definitely had a robust conversation internally about, you know, turning the camera on. So we've heard from teachers, we've heard from students and from parents about the benefit of allowing, you know, students to engage with each other via a virtual environment and to engage with the teacher. You know, we have talked a lot about trying to promote social emotional learning as well. And, you know, we really want to try to build a community across the school and within each classroom. But, you know, as Dr. Posner mentioned earlier, you know, this is one of those points where, you know, if there are exceptions to this type of rule, we really want to hear about it. We want to try to meet the kids and where they are, but you know, we also want to help as best we can to prepare them for tomorrow's world. So I can understand because I've heard from parents and students who may have concerns and be it anxiety or what have you. But we definitely want to understand and try to put ourselves in our students' shoes. And we also want to do everything we can to try to prepare them for where they will be at the next level of education and where they're going to be when they leave high school and are entering into a career where they're going to be interacting with people, being part of teams, and needing to build critical thinking skills, building team working skills. So this is going to be an interesting implementation around this specific topic. So how much time should I plan spending on homework every day now that I'm doing most of the work during the live learning? Again, I will ask our principals if they would be interested in answering this question.
I think it's one of those, each subject and each assignment, there might be variety, and there might be a variety of answers to that. But we are looking at our schedule at the elementary level to still provide that time for that independent work and that time to really dig in and master each subject area. So, we look at the live lesson time being that time for guided practice and the introduction and explanation of the content. And then students may have additional time, and it would be possibly broken up for a larger project over several days, and time to be able to complete. So there's not a set time that you would necessarily say it's always going to be. A live lesson is one set time, and there'll be the work outside of that will be another set time.
So I'm going to address the last question and wrap it up from here. So is Edgenuity being completely replaced? So we are replacing Edgenuity as the learning management system with Canvas. And we are also replacing some Edgenuity content with content from an organization called FlexPoint, specifically at K5. So we will continue to work with Edgenuity primarily to provide electives in grades 6, 8, and 9, 12. So I want to thank you all for joining us this evening. I want to thank you for your questions. Thank you for frankly partnering with us, as you educate your children. It's a great opportunity. Thank you for continuing to be on this journey with us. We've made tremendous progress over the last year or so, and we continue to look forward to growing with you, growing with your children, and receiving feedback from you. This is not the beginning or the end of this conversation. This is a continuation. And again, we look forward to having these types of town hall meetings in the future. And I look forward to continuing to interact with you. And on behalf of our board, on behalf of our staff, thank you. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening.